and I kept telling people, you're just voting for the two sides of the same, the same coin. You're not going to get anything better with one or the other. And so thank you for putting it into words, what I've been trying to say. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah,
well, can I share, Stuart, while I've got you on, can I share with you what I have found out in my travels? I'm not sure where you get your information, but most of us channel it direct. But I had died as a child with hepatitis, and then again, after I saw these beings I called angels, and then I died when when I had my fourth child. So 2 times I've left my body with, being sort of thrown out due to death. So I always felt like I had an insight, and that's why the government used me. It was provable and verifiable. And then they had me come to Washington with my polygraph retina scan, psych eval, and believe me, they put truth serum in me. It wasn't much, but it was more than 2 cc's. I'd say about 4 cc's of the white milky substance that I asked about. But they had me doing a polygraph 2 days in a row, and I was just in tears. But they know I have this skill. But what I'd like you to know is when I did start doing an investigation, they brought me, I was in the Navy in Hawaii and did all my psychic training, and that's how Janet and I, believe, met, was when we were both involved in Stargate. But we each have it means different things. We're going to write that book, hopefully, for this thing we're having is Stargate-to-the-cosmos that I hope you'll be a part. But the people that I worked with off-planet, now you can say, well, that's hard to prove, and I will say, yes, sir, it is. So Janet calls it my testimony because I can't make these people appear. But the beings I worked with on planet, they were highly, highly intelligent, extremely logical, much like Spock, but they didn't understand us, and some of them were during the war, come and go with us at different ages. Many were thousands of years old, and they worked and observed during the Hitler War, World War II. But one of the questions, my husband would not get into God and all of that, but finally, you just ask. I had to ask, well, what about God? My husband, they would turn off they were in another place in space. I always called it outside Andromeda Galaxy because it was out of this one. But they were universal, coming and going from universes. And so I was able to go from level 5 out to 7. So I've done 7-dimensional travels in my own mind anyway. But these beings, and Janet wants me to talk and has been trying to get me to since 2012. I did write for UFO Digest, Stewart, about some of my travels with my husband and the connection to Roswell. But the part I want you to know is they said God has always been. That's as close as they'd get. And this group of beings that are so brilliant from universal travel, which supplied some spacecraft outside of Milky Way galaxy, but they let us come in, and we hid behind the moon and and we would travel over behind Mars and sit there. But after I presented that, and I saw the movie Contact with you saw the after I saw that, I called Ames, and I've talked to a few astronauts, but they know. The government knows who I am, but nobody could ever put it on paper. They threatened newspaper people because I had surveillance, intelligence, reconnaissance training. So the newspaper people, if I ever tried, me and my husband tried to go one time, and they'd shut them all down, picked up all the papers. So what apparently I was doing, even though I wasn't in a level, they said it was way, way above the president, but when I was in the 3D Navy, they had German people in charge of me, and they came out and took me. One man came and took me from Lowry Air Force Base, and I'm just innocent as heck, okay? I mean, I had been an investigator in and out of country on the planet, Africa and Europe, but I didn't understand the process I was going through. So when I went underground, and they brought me from Hawaii back to the mainland to do another project, it was to work with my husband. And he and I had done some on-planet type of investigations. And so he and I had come up with the consequence that there's Central Intelligence Agency on the planet and off. And the ones that we worked with, they were benevolent, but they didn't understand logically. So I'm on your storyline somehow. I've even channeled one time at night to Janet, so I knew I would meet you someday, or at least talk to you, because you and I have some connection through these beings. Now, they're benevolent, but they're so benevolent and so logical, they can tell you about the wars, but they don't understand it. They ask Tom on certain cards why they don't understand a lot about the intuition either, because what happened over time, they working with various groups out in the universes, not the low-level galaxy, okay? I don't do all that low-level stuff because I know I'm not, from there. Or, I don't say Milky Way versus Andromeda or all that, okay? But because I was relating the closest galaxy to the system was Andromeda, they put me in the Collier group. And Janet, remember one of those guys you had me on? He uses T or Telos or something with a T. He's an Andromeda person. So they were trying to classify me as an Andromeda person. But what I'm working with are beings that are way above all the galaxies. So you understand outside universal levels, right? And that they've been around like forever.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, well that's what I need to know, and I'll have to talk to you off radio to get this stuff. I'm working on that, but I need more assistance. People that work universally.
Theresa, where are you located?
Gulf Breeze, Florida, and I'm very logical, but I'm in Gulf Breeze off 98.
Now, well, I'm going to.
You can look me up.
Yeah, let Stewart tell you something. Stewart's trying to tell you something.
Okay, please.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to tell you because the Gulf Breeze is a very important spot.
Thank you. I guess.
The coast of the Gulf. Yeah, but now.
Well, let me tell you how. Let me tell you, my daughter got a picture of a UFO, and I'd never been able to, when I was an investigator, they'd never let me take a picture. But she got one, and they told it to send it to your mother in Kentucky. And I got run out by my power being cut off, even though I paid the bill, and then a tornado came through, and that's why I came down here. So now tell me why is my children live here, and they were all involved in the ET program. So why is it important?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a story.
Please.
And it took place from 1966 to 1968 in the Florida Panhandle, and also involved southern Georgia and parts of Alabama. And during that time period, the government was noticing that there were many, many abductions of people from this region of the Gulf area and Alabama and so on. And so they started monitoring these things. And eventually, so I'll make a long story short, after several hundred abductions and the government watching this, the government abducted one of the abductees and hypnotized them into giving them information. And they said, the next time you're abducted, you tell these beings that we want to speak to them. And so that's exactly what happened back in 1968. The government met with a representative of these beings in Gulf Breeze area in an Air Force base. And there was a U.S. general who spoke with them. And these beings said that they represented a group that they called the Network, and that they were part of 17,000 worlds that extended from the Milky Way galaxy into the Andromeda galaxy, and that the ones who controlled them were not physical, but came from alternate or non-physical existences in other universes. And so they said the reason that they're on the Earth was because this planet was in their territory, and that humans, or the people here, were considered invaders. And so the government general said to this representative, so if we're in your territory, you will protect us from other invaders. And the answer was, yes, we will protect the Earth, but you may not be here. So that, Theresa, is while you're in Gulf Breeze, I believe my opinion is that you're connected to this network group, which is connected to the Andromeda Galaxy, and so on. And it's, again, a complicated story, but yes, one day when I speak to you privately, I'll tell you more.
Thank you. Yes, because they'll only tell me what they want me to know, and then they'll download, but they've sent me light messages in 3D form that I don't understand. They're Egyptian hieroglyphics are. I remember certain ones that have to do with pi and fractals and synergy. It's a signature like a side 8. I guess we use it for infinity, and I've got. I don't know what it all means, but apparently when I need to understand, I will. But what I've been playing is doing my best to be sane and organized and work for the government and do my intelligence work, not knowing if I'm programmed or not, because a lot of people that promote the MK Ultra want to think the worst of me, and I don't agree with that because I've been conscious about all of this. But these beings were super nice, and the last time they picked me up was after my husband died, right here in Gulf Breeze, and they took me up to a huge, gigantic, long ship. I've never been on one this long. They're big, long tubes together. But they sat me down in a chair, and I couldn't tell if I was in body or out, so I referred back to the Bible when certain people would be in body or out, but they couldn't tell. So I couldn't tell, and I went up there and sat, and of course I talked to a man that to me would be Jesus, right? But he had hair like Obama. It was so he was sort of, it was a little speckled black and white. But next to him, and I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but Philippe Coppens was on one of the boards, the liquid plasma boards. You can't, I guess you could make this stuff up, but he was a friend of mine. But he was passed. He had passed due to pneumonia. And so I told Janet. Janet is my only confidant, unless I say it on the radio, because something just comes into me to share, like I'm sharing with you. Or I'll tell Tommy something, my other confidant. So unless somebody spurs it and I feel comfortable, I only share parts. But that's why I think we're having the Stargate-to-the-cosmos, is to find the different people, universal or cosmically connected. So do you work – now these beings said that they found us here, so that would go with your story. It's not pro or con, but they studied us, and they asked why we do things. They didn't know. They asked me, why are you cutting the trees down when you need it for oxygen? And I'm going, I don't know. They said, well, you're an ambassador. And I'm like, okay. But they told me that when I was a young girl. Remember, I felt abandoned on the planet. And then, so my job was to be here, observe, and to be a part of, but experience life here and accept it and adopt it. I know that. But I haven't apparently been able to do much of my job. So when I was in Hawaii, I started looking at rainforest. And, my corporation, I became a president of a corporation, and I was still working for the Navy. But I looked into that, and we were cutting the trees down in South America and Brazil, all those areas. But they think we're dumb as a rock because and I get that feeling when I'm around them, in body, like, okay, I'm supposed to be this great ambassador, but I'm dumb as a rock. So it's an oxymoron being me. But, I can't explain why we're cutting the trees down. That's just one thing. So apparently, where are you getting your information about this universal I believe you, but I'm just asking. I get downloads, so what do you get? Do they talk to you, or did somebody tell you? Did they download to you?
That's also a very big question, Theresa, because as I mentioned about my family history, I get a lot of information from intelligence services. I also get information that I learned in the Montauk Project. Plus, I also get information when I go outside into the higher frequencies. So all the above is where I get the information. Plus, I do a lot of extensive research. I travel everywhere to every continent, including Antarctica. I go into the different records that you cannot get on the internet or anywhere else. And I put myself kind of, my head on the chopping block by going to these places and learning these different information that you cannot get in books or internet or anything else. So I do all of this to get the information. It's not just one source.